Hello everyone, I'm Sebastian Y, and this is Foundations of Economics. In the next few videos, we are going to go through the basics of the supply and demand model, which is our foundational model of microeconomics that we'll keep coming back throughout this course. In this video, I'm going to introduce the supply and demand model with our main assumption of a competitive market. All of the analysis that we're going to do in the coming videos will assume that the market is competitive. All we mean by a market is the buyers and sellers for a particular good or service. We could define this broadly as in the market for food, or narrowly as the market for hamburgers. Markets can be highly organized, like an agricultural exchange, or they can be decentralized, like the market for sandwiches in town. Whatever the case, these are all markets. Now, what do we mean by competitive? The buyers as a group determine the demand, and the sellers as a group determine the supply. That is not to say that there is any kind of communication or cooperation between the buyers and the sellers, but it's their collective actions that determine the supply and the demand. Now, what do we mean by competitive? There are three assumptions that we need to have a competitive market. First, there are many buyers. Second, there are many sellers. And third, individual buyers and sellers have a negligible impact on the market price. There isn't a particular number of buyers or sellers that qualify as many for a competitive market. It's simply enough so that each individual buyer and seller is such a small part of the market that they have a negligible impact on the price, as stated in point 3. We can take this a step further by assuming that our market is perfectly competitive. Perfectly competitive market is the most competitive a market can be. This adds a few additional assumptions. First, all products are indistinguishable from one another. No matter which seller is selling them, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. Second, no individual has any influence over the price. If this is the case, we say that all individuals are price takers. Whatever the market price is, that's what they're stuck with. If you are a buyer in a perfectly competitive market and you're not happy about the price and you ask for a lower price, you're only one of many buyers, and so the sellers will just go to the next person. Likewise, if you're a seller and you want to sell at a higher price, the buyers have many options of other sellers to choose from, all of which sell an indistinguishable product, so there's really nothing that any individual can do about the price. In real life, these are very strong assumptions that are usually not true. We often think about the markets for agricultural commodities as the closest thing that we can get to perfect competition. If you think about the market for wheat, there really aren't any brand names. Wheat that comes from one farm versus another is basically the same. Although this model does not exactly reflect reality, it's a very good starting point for thinking about how markets work. Before we move on, I need to clarify one last definition, and that's keterous parabus. This is a Latin term meaning all else equal. Keterous parabus is an important concept because economic systems that we're going to analyze are very complex. What we are going to try to do is think about what would happen if one thing in that complex system changes while holding everything else the same. This is going to allow us to think about the specific impact of changing that one variable. In the coming videos, we're going to use this concept as we analyze demand, supply, and equilibrium.